Reform, and we're here with
Kevin Kavanaugh.
Yep.
So,
do you want to tell us about your political background and why you're running? And
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a retired police officer. I retired in 2003, but in 2000, I ran for a county council seat back in Indiana. And I didn't do very well. There were 13 people in the primary, but it helped me to learn a lot about politics. And most recently, I helped Mark Lamb, the sheriff of Pinell County now, and Kent Volkmer, the new county attorney, get elected. Mr. Volkmer beat an incumbent Republican. He's a Republican himself. And then Sheriff Lamb beat the establishment candidate. So I was with the new administration, but then we realized we were talking about the congressional race and the same old crop of candidates who lose every time. And I asked my wife, what should we do? And I said, I'll let you make the decision entirely. And without hesitation, my wife said, you need to step out of the sheriff's office and run for Congress.
Issues that you're campaigning on?
Well, the first thing, as you well know, is free speech, particularly at college campuses, but even at high schools. Free speech on the part of conservatives, on the part of Christians, on the part of moderates is being oppressed. If you identify yourself as a conservative, if you stand for pro-life, if you read your Bible before class like this young man did at NAU, whom we discovered, you'll be punished. And it's wrong. It is not something that should happen in the United States of America. There's a reason the First Amendment is the first, and it involves free speech. Our country was founded on free speech. We can't let it slip away because of protesters, because of liberal college instructors. So we really need to attack this issue.
Yeah. Well, that's what we focus on at Campus Reform. You know, we had the article that I wrote about Kaylin Jeffers with the Mankind issue.
Right, I met her. She's a sweetheart.
She is, yeah. And it seems like there's a lot of those stories coming out of NAU, and you know, which is in the district that you're running for.
Yes.
So what do you plan to do to combat that?
Well, look, first of all, we've gone into the belly of the beast. We are meeting on the campus of NAU because outside of Berkeley, it's one of the most liberal, speech oppressing, free thought oppressing places in the country. So we are going on campus and tackling the issue. When I get to Congress, I will propose legislation that penalizes institutions that receive federal money if they limit free speech on campus. We went to a meeting on Monday, a week ago, and it was a free space, safe spaces, brave spaces meeting, including the professor who asked Mark Holden to leave her classroom for reading the Bible and some other things. Mm-hmm. And they advocate for safe spaces for socialist thought, for liberal thought. And brave spaces means a place where you can attack conservative thought. There was no mention, in fact, we were there for about 3 hours, there's very little mention of real free speech. They want to oppress conservative or moderate speech, and they want to support liberal, socialist, even Marxist speech. This is the United States of America. This is not a Marxist country, so it concerns me a great deal. Close second among my primary issues are pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, and the 10th Amendment, where we have a separation of powers between the federal and the state governments. The federal government has become oppressive in the way they deal with states. We were using purse strings to control the things that happen in the state. So.
Well, you brought up the issue of like the Second Amendment. What are your thoughts on campus carry? Because I know that was a big topic on, especially at U of A on our campus, about students being able to bring guns on campus, and what do you plan to do about that?
Well, the Constitution, the Second Amendment says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Yeah.
So my understanding of the Constitution, it is a right to carry permit that extends from New York to California, from sea to shining sea. We have the right to keep and bear arms, and it shall not be infringed. So any city or municipality or county government that places restriction on guns, I believe, is unconstitutional. When you're traveling state to state, county to county. You should be able to cross a county line or a state line without worry of arrest or change of rule or law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the issue with college campuses. Even going back to free speech is, people think that our rights don't extend to a public university, which is clearly not the case.
Right.
So that kind of goes together in that
Maybe
way.
going back
to free speech issues, talking about the Berkeley issues that have been going on for
Right.
quite some time now with Milo, and then now with Ann Coulter. What are your thoughts on what happened? And
Look,
yeah.
this is socialist Marxist ideology at work. If they can successfully stop free speech with a person like Ann Coulter, with a person like Milo, I can't pronounce his last name, they can do it to less popular, less well-connected speakers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a travesty of justice. I believe, just as we did in the 60s, the federal government must come in and protect speakers on college campuses so that free speech is not impinged. The opposition is largely credited to this Antifa movement,
Mm-hmm.
anti-fascist.
Yeah.
And those same people were at our little rally up at NAU with black masks and black hats and black gloves. And I invited one of them up to speak. I had a staff member go say, "Hey, go to the microphone, Mr. Kavanaugh will let you speak," and he refused to do so. And so we cannot allow ourselves to be hindered by anyone in a black mask and gloves, weapons or no.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to be ready to fight.
Yeah.
And good men and women died for the freedoms in this country to protect the Constitution. We simply cannot be afraid of violence. The paid protesters I've heard are paid by certain groups or certain individuals, and I'm not prepared to identify those because I don't have any hard evidence.
Of course.
But when I see professionally made signs, screen printed signs like the May Day signs this morning in New York and elsewhere, the protesters they expected didn't pay for those. Somebody with some money paid for those signs.
Yeah.
And if you saw my tweet, did you see my tweet this morning?
I don't think so.
Well, there was an issue because there weren't enough protesters to pick up all the signs. So I recommended the conservatives go pick up the signs and burn them to keep warm while they sang the battle hymn of the Republic.
Yeah.
So, we just have to get in there and fight. You cannot be afraid. Each and every citizen of this country must be prepared to defend the Constitution. And that may mean taking some licks. And that may mean giving some licks. I don't advocate for violence. But when somebody's delivering a hit,
For the
you've got to hit
Constitution,
back.
everyone has the right to peacefully protest, but this is clearly taking it too far
Right.
and
Yeah.
abusing that.
Yeah, I believe up in Oregon, I just read that the protest turned into a riot. And things are on fire. They were setting things on fire and smashing windows. And the message from the protest group were complaining about how the police were dressed in military-like gear to end a peaceful protest. And in the very picture they posted, there's a fire burning in the middle of the street. It is upside down what's happening.
Like the kid who wasn't able to read his Bible before class. That's
Right.
It's stifling. And
Look, he's not alone. There are others.
Yeah.
There's Kaylin and other people. They live in fear. I spoke with an Army ROTC member. At NAU, these young men and women walk around in their uniforms, but they also walk around in fear. They dare not show up at a free speech rally for fear that their grades will be reduced and the things that would happen to them in the ROTC if they get a failing grade. They may not be able to continue in the ROTC. And so their free speech is being limited by intimidation. And so there was a young woman who said she was going to quit NAU and go somewhere else because of the things that were happening. And our advice to her was stay and fight, stand and fight. That's how things are going to change. And an individual, it makes it difficult. But if you realize that good conservatives, Christians, are standing together to fight against liberalism, Marxism, socialism on college campuses and throughout this country, we can beat this scourge back. So, and that's why I think Trump is so popular, because he is unafraid, and his goal is to stop socialism, stop liberalism and Marxism in the United States.
People have this, especially on college campuses, they just have this idealistic perspective on it.
Right. It's killed millions of people in history, and it's killing people today. Look at Venezuela. Look at North Korea. Look at China. Look at Russia. People are starving and being murdered for free speech in those countries. So I'm not prepared to take socialism. I simply won't do it.
Yeah, well, it's good to have people like you advocating for that on college campuses, because it's a rough fight just for all of us.
Young people are encouraged when they have someone who is willing to take the lead and not push them out in front, but going to the belly of the beast, the campus of NAU and elsewhere, and standing for free speech and saying, I will fight with you. I'll not give orders from a distance, but I'm willing to stand with you and fight. And it's very encouraging to these young people.